Welcome to our webinar, AI and HVAC Operations, Practical Use Cases that Increase Bookings. This session was hosted on March 25th, 2026, in partnership with Contractor Staffing Source and Avoca AI. Before we dive in, let's start with a quick introduction to Avoca. Avoca is focused on bringing advanced AI technology into the trades. Led by experienced founders with backgrounds in data science and real-world operations, the company is one of the fastest-growing AI platforms in the home services space, trusted by both small businesses and large enterprises. In today's market, it's easy to feel like everything is working against you. But the reality is there's still a lot within your control as a business owner. In this session, we'll also touch on an important idea, focusing on what you can control in your business, even in the face of challenges like weather, the economy, and rising lead costs. Let's dive into the session.
You can control. And then you can't control the macroeconomic environment, right? Labor shortages, insurance for those who that's relevant. But what you can control is your margins. Like, what are you doing to protect your margins? And then we also talked about cost per lead, right? So like that's something that based on supply and demand, more and more people are getting online still today. And so the price keeps going up. But what you can do is how you react with the leads, the expensive leads that you generate. How quickly do you
I like to
respond
comment,
to
Federico.
those?
One issue
Go
that,
ahead.
sort of the good news about private equity, and I would sort of make a joke and say he's going to, put you out of business or buy you, that private equity, since they've got a lot of cash and they're buying up companies like crazy, especially in the home services industry, is they're raising, because they've got a lot of cash, they're certainly raising the price of leads. Have you noticed that? It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Like that. I mean, there are many components of why the price is going up, but that's the thing to realize. It's like the truth, in my opinion, is it doesn't even matter why. What matters is understanding that that's happening. Can't really control that. So what are you gonna do about it, right? And so,
Right.
I mean, we're living in a world today where Google will literally deprioritize your spend, your ads, if you're not responding quickly when leads come in because there
Right.
is so much demand for them. I mean, like it's brutal, but I also understand their incentives
Right.
as Google. They want to prioritize the ones that actually make the most of the service that Google provides.
Right.
And so that's kind of where AI comes in, right? Like you can resist it or you can embrace it. But at the end of the day, that's something you can control is how you react to technologies that come in and innovation. I was very young when the dot-com situation happened, but like between those who resisted it and said like, oh, I'm not getting any business online anyway. Why would I have a website? Versus the ones that were visionaries and said, no, everything's going to happen online later. That's
Federico, let
where,
me share a story with you because I think it's relevant. Okay. I've been in this
tell me.
industry for a long time, right? I mean, when I started this industry, contractors were using pagers. That's how old I am,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
And so I've been dragging contractors. First, they thought pagers. I said they should use cell phones. They're going to disturb their peace of mind in the truck. And then we went from cell phones to, email. Email was just a fad. And then we went from that to websites. And website, I don't need a website. People know who I
Right.
am. We went from websites to project management software. Well, I can do this on a yellow pad or spreadsheets. I don't need project management software, and we just keep dragging them through. With the latest, and unfortunately, contractors tend to be Luddites a little bit. They're slow to adopt technology. And unfortunately, the ones that are slow to adopt technology don't really succeed that well because technology runs them over. Well, to me, if you look at that whole series of things, AI is just the latest thing in that whole long series of
Yep.
technology where if they don't adapt, they're going to die because I use the example, if you're using a shovel and I'm using a backhoe, guess who's going to win? Right? It doesn't matter who I speak, right?
Of
So
course.
it's sort of like that. This is the equivalent of a shovel versus a backhoe when you're using on how to answer phones and that kind of thing. You just cannot deny technology.
Yeah. Yeah. Couldn't agree more with you. And I think that for those who are tuned in today, they probably agree as well. And so next we're going to kind of dive into like the how, the like how are we going to do this? And in my opinion, the biggest learning of how you can do this is, well, you need to think about what is going to have the highest return on your time and effort and money. And in my opinion, that's the analogy of the leaky bucket, right? This leaky bucket is basically a business. This is your business. The water you want to put into the bucket is like the leads. It's Google spend, it's marketing spend. But then the leaks is all the different ways that the operation isn't optimized. What maybe again you're not answering every single call. Maybe you have abandonment. Maybe you send the calls to a third party answering service offshore. Maybe you get Google leads and you're not fast enough at responding at those leads. Like whatever it is, every one of us has leaks. And so the first person who kind of like really kind of honestly made me come up with this analogy is this man, Brian Anders. He runs $100 million company as part of legacy service providers. And he's been growing extremely fast. And he says, you are just not booking as many calls as you think because you're not actioning all the leads that you're paying for. Leads are expensive, focus on all of the ones you already have. And so he became obsessed with with basically closing all of the leaks. And in doing so, he was able to maintain the exact same marketing spend, which was 8% of the total revenue, while dropping his cost per lead significantly. So I love this slide because it's such a great example of you can't control the cost per lead like on Google, but you can drop it for yourself if you optimize your business and start focusing on closing up those leaks.
And I would say, Federico, a lot of people don't even know how bad the bucket's leaking.
100%. I mean, in the example of Brian, he was pretty well aware of how much he was leaking from a call center perspective, but one thing that he didn't really know is his website. He actually had a lot of traffic on his website, but then the people who were trying to book directly, a lot of that was falling through. And so we have a whole case study on their business. They basically 3 or 4x the revenue that came directly from their website when they had a plan for it. They had like a very simple form that I actually have a slide that will show that later, but they have drip campaigns that go after the leads that fall. And so they were able to gain visibility and results through that. So it's definitely a huge success story there. But I couldn't agree with you more. And so what I wanted to spend some time now on is actually look at the 3 top use cases in the real world of how you can be leveraging AI to patch those leaks. And so the 3 are going to be obviously answering every single call, instantly following up with leads, and setting up drip campaigns. Again, this is not about avoca. You will not see anything about avoca in here, but you will see data and real use cases. And so the first piece of data that I want to show around answering every single call on the first ring is this. This is very, in my opinion, super interesting data. It shows abandonment rate by time of the phone ringing. On average, like a single ring is like 6 seconds. And so what we're seeing here is that if the phone rings for 18 seconds, which is 3 rings, about a third of your leads basically hang up. They go somewhere else. You don't even get the chance. So you're paying for the phone to ring, but then you're too slow at picking it up and you don't even get the chance. So we always say, like, try to answer within 10 seconds. If you see our data shows 7% abandonment rate, I have reason to believe those people don't actually have intent if they're hanging up after a couple of seconds, maybe. A lot of people don't have intent. Sure, you could always call them back, and some do, but a lot don't. So if you answer the phone within 10 seconds, you're going to see obviously the highest success. But it's pretty brutal to see that if your phone is ringing for over a minute, good luck with that, right? Like they're going to hang up. They're going to go call someone else.
Federico, it's the same thing in recruiting. Like when people apply for a job with us, we respond within a minute of the time they apply. The same thing is true. If you're looking for a job and you apply to 10 companies and one company responds within a minute and the other one takes 3 days, who are you going to go to work for, right?
Of course, yeah.
We are in an age of no patience. Sort of, we all have some form of ADD that has been, taught to us. And we have, if something doesn't happen, like we're used to flipping through like our phone, right? We give if we're not interested in the first 5 seconds, we're done, or 10 seconds. And I think the same thing. So the mentality of the consumer has changed to where the average consumer has no patience, where we used to have some, right?
Yeah. And like I think that, people who see this slide, maybe they didn't know the actual data around it. Maybe some of them are shocked at seeing the abandonment rate here. But the truth is that once again, this is not rocket science. And I think in life and in business, most of the times the biggest insights are fairly intuitive. The problem is not having the data. The problem is doing something about it. And so,
Right.
when you see this slide, it's like, yeah, okay, you understand that the longer the phone rings, the more people are going to hang up. But what are you going to do about it?
Right.
That's
And
really like, are you going to take action?
right. And I know that the big difference is the only calls we hang in there, like it could be our phone company, it could be changing a plane flight. We got no choice, right? I mean, if we
Yeah.
don't get the person, we're going to be in trouble. So we have patience, not because we want to, because we have to. But if there's another option, if there's two other companies I can call, if I don't have to hang in there, I'm going to leave as quickly as I can because I got options. So to me, the only time people hang in there are when there are no options. But certainly in the service industry, there's a next guy on the list, and you've got five after him. So you have a ton of options, so you don't have to wait.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so the way that AI can help with this, right, is you can have an AI agent that triggers if you're not answering the phone. So you can set it up that after those 18 rings, or sorry, 3 rings, or maybe it's 10 seconds, if nobody's going to pick this up, then you can transfer the call over to an AI. This could be during the day for overflow, or you can just set that up for after hours. Now, I'll tell you what, many people are accustomed to thinking of voice AI the same way that we've been accustomed to think about the call tree and kind of like these quote unquote dumb bots where we're like, can I speak to a human? But today in 2026, AI has made leaps in terms of technology, in the way it sounds, in the workflows that it can handle. And it's so good that many businesses today are putting AI in the front, answering every single call that comes in into their business and then routing it the way that it should be
And
routed.
I think I've heard some statistics. I'm not sure where they came from, but the old days, well, old days, now 3 years ago, right? Old days. When people used to like AI, I don't know, but now actually a lot of people prefer AI to a real person, which like it was sometimes like 70%. It was crazy numbers because AI is responsive. It doesn't get upset. It answers questions. It doesn't have an accent you can't understand. So it's
Right.
interesting how things have shifted to where people actually now prefer AI to a real person.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And look, like, there's something about if you have like a really good CSR or somebody who's US based and really good at their job, like that's probably always gonna be the best service. But there is something to be said around about just what you just said, like consistency of the service that's like consistently just good. And so I have here a recording that's actually pretty old, and like you said, 3 years ago is ages ago for AI, but even months. The improvements are deployed on a monthly basis. But
Right.
just for those who have no idea how this sounds like, I do have a minute recording that I can play now to
Okay, go
see
for
to
it.
kind of show what that looks like.
Right.
And Paul, if you can hear it, let me know and we can just move forward.
Okay. Actually, I can't hear it. I think you need to press another button when it comes to the recording so we can actually hear what's going on.
Okay, yeah. If you guys can't hear it, then that's fine. You can always hear it on, for example, on Avoca's website, or we can,
Okay.
you can reach out. But I wanted to the things that I was going to kind of point out is it really does sound human. It's very empathetic. You can have male, female, English, Spanish. You can customize the voice is the point. And the nice part about AI today is like in real time while you're having a normal conversation, you also the AI is plugged into your CRM, your system of records, and is consistently updating that, getting all the information. The customer already exists into the CRM. Then you can basically skip the part of gathering their information. You can kind of just confirm, hey, am I speaking with this person? Do you still live at this address? Because it's able to read that information off
Right.
of the
It,
CRM.
And the people that are listening to this are like me going, well, AI is going to get there someday. I think AI is there. I mean, people go, well, there's, I remember in the old days, a year ago, where there was a big pause. You'd ask a question, there'd be this like 30-second pause or 10-second, whatever, and then an answer. The pause has gone away. So,
Yeah.
I would say if you're waiting for it to be as good as a human, stop waiting. It's there.
Yeah. And like, if you don't think that it's there, then I mean, A, I would encourage you to check us out, but then B, I would say it's just improving so fast. Like, if you wait until you personally think it's perfect, it's way too late. It's way, way, way
Right.
too late.
Right.
Cool. So that's the first insight. Answer every single call on the first ring, whether you have people who are able to pick up the phone or whether you don't. Have a plan in that case. The second one is speed. Is speed to lead, but with two-way conversations. And so here's what I'm gonna say. Like just to set the stage, right? Like for example, you get a lead in from Angie in this specific example. Many of you have, before even AI was a thing, we've had auto reply automations, and so many of you may be familiar with what an auto reply automation is. And so what the insight that I wanted to spend a minute on today is the difference between automation and generative AI, because I actually find that most people don't know this, and so it behooves AI companies to kind of educate the world on
Right.
this. And so the difference between an automation and generative AI is an automation is a series of if-then statements, right? So you come up with a set of scenarios where if this happens, then this is how you want the automation to respond. A call tree is a perfect example of an automation where you say, press 1 for this, press 2 for that, press 3 for this other thing. If I press 7, well, at best, the automation is going to read my options again. At worst, it'll just hang up because that
Right.
scenario has now been pre-programmed. Generative AI is still obviously still an automation, it's still a computer, but it actually works a lot more like a human. You don't give it pre-canned statements. Rather, you tell it what the goal is. For example, get this lead, qualify the lead, and then get them booked into the CRM. And then you give them some guidelines like never cuss at them, never use the specific words, don't yell at them, right? Be nice. These are the job types we do. These are the service areas we can cover. Right. That's what you do, and then you just let it go loose. So
Right.
if the
Federico, for old school guys like me, one way to look at it is the difference between using Google search and ChatGPT, right? It's an
yeah,
entirely different experience.
right, totally
When you
different.
have a conversation with, and when you actually have to like work out and get the research, but it's in a different experience because when you're using the old Google, like I'm going to Google it, that means you got to go what you're looking for. You got to search Google. You got to actually do some work. When you're using AI like ChatGPT or Claude or something, you just talk to it like a person. It answers you, and you have a conversation. It's an entirely different experience.
Yeah, I'd even take it a step beyond that because when you do a Google search, there's still an algorithm there that is prioritizing the best link for you to look at. But with automation, none of that is happening. That's almost like if you were using a version of Google where you were asking a question and then you get 1,000 results in
Right,
alphabetical order, something that is
right,
not actually helpful to you.
right,
And that's what people often think like when we talk about speed to lead, when we talk about these auto
right,
reply is just automation. The difference that AI gives us is true two-way conversations that can handle any scenario. Meaning that if the lead were to say some complete nonsense, like it's snowing outside or I like pizza, like I don't know, something random,
right,
the AI would make a
right.
joke or it
Well,
would tie it into the
again,
conversation.
it's like having a conversation with ChatGPT or something. I mean, literally, it's a conversation. It's not a
Yeah.
research project, which is an entirely different experience.
Entirely different. Yeah, exactly. And so that's exactly what you can expect today within your business is kind of like a chat GPT that is highly specialized in your industry, in your specific business, with your specific policies and preferences. Totally different from an automation. And so that's an important concept to grasp. The third thing I wanted to talk about, which ties into this what I just talked about, is the drip campaigns, especially from web leads that drop off, but also just like we just looked, right, from an NG lead as well. So taking specifically the example of web leads, here is what H.L. Bowman's website actually looked like. So this is Brian Ender's company, like I was showing earlier. We built this little widget on the site, and people can book an appointment directly from that site. Great. Now, a couple of things about this. First and foremost, all right, imagine a lead is coming in, they're going through the form, they're booking it, and then they drop. First and foremost, up to 80% of leads drop off. And just like you said earlier, Paul, most people have no idea about it. We can tell you that a simpler form, just making it as simple as possible, is going to result in a higher completion rate. So that's good. But then for those leads who do drop off, you can recover at least a portion of them with these drip campaigns. These are automatic and instantaneous. Let's say drip means a set of texts and calls.
In case people are my generation, what drip campaigns means is just let's say a lead comes in, a guy, I'm not interested, or I don't want it right now. Statistically, I know the exact odds, but if you can help me, sometimes it's a fourth or fifth contact where they actually do anything, right? But unless you make that fourth or fifth contact, let's say they're interested in, I don't know, changing their water heater, whatever they want to do, to get a new roof, pick one, right? So they decide to do that, yeah, I'm not really interested. Then what happens is if you drop it, it's dead. Whereas their roof may still leak. And so they may, like, you keep drip chem maybe a week, maybe a month, and sooner or later, when their roof leaks again, who are they going to go to? The person that's been in touch with them, right, Federico?
Yeah, exactly. And you're right, it usually does take a few touch points. And the ability of having different touch points, right? Like a text, a call from the AI, a call from an employee, a call from a human, right? That is what usually, what is associated with the highest conversion rates. But it's very seldom just on the very first touch. So that's the idea of a drip campaign. Now, when you're setting up the workflow, that's when the if-then statements still apply, right? You can say, I'm going to send a text, and then if there is no reply within 2 hours, or maybe it's 5 minutes, whatever you want, then I'm going to place an AI call. And if the AI call doesn't work, then I'm going to have a human call them. That type of logic in the workflow. But when there's actual contact, the AI is behaving just like a human would.
Right. And to me, where a lot of people are leaving money on the ground, as you would say, or not picking it up, is they spend all the time to generate a lead. And you said 80% of them, there's a huge number that actually don't follow through, and then they're gone forever. You probably have the numbers. If you have a drip campaign, of that 80% that went away, how much can you actually get to do something later?
Yeah, we do. We have the data right here. This is the data. We have it by the time you take to follow up. And so we're seeing that if you're following up within a minute, we're seeing that on average, about half of those leads were actually interested. Maybe they had a hiccup on the website, and that's why they dropped, but their intent was to finish that form. And so, you can capture back up 50% of all of those leads that are dropping. We see a big drop. You can kind of see like it trends in this direction, and then it just drops off after 4 minutes. And I mean, between converting 50% and 10%, right? Like that's a big jump. And so just because you're waiting 4 minutes. And so that's once again, like the data may be surprising. There might be an insight on the fact that there is a drop. In general, this makes sense, but then what are you going to do about it, right? And so you can have employees, you can have teams that are.
Well, I'll make a case for you here, Federico, is if you have an employee and they're getting too many phone calls, they're already frustrated, right? They're, this is a pain in the butt. And then they are not excited if a person hangs up to call back in 4 minutes, or if they don't feel that, they're not going to do it. Because look at, if they have I'm going to call it the myth that if they're interested, they will call back. And that's a myth.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super true. I'll also share another insight here that a lot of the times, if you're not doing this is actually have nothing to do with AI, but when you do the callback, actually there is data to prove that you don't want the same person. If it was a call that dropped, you don't want the same CSR to call them back. You actually want a different one, because a lot of the times the reason that the qualified lead didn't get booked is they didn't like the CSR. So if you call them back with the same
I will allow,
CSR,
this sounds, I'm sure it doesn't, it sounds racist or something. It's like some people, if the person has a Spanish accent, has an Indian accent, pick an accent, right? Oh, I don't talk to those kind of people. Click, right? For what, who knows their history, their background, whatever, but some reason they have something against that accent and they hang up just because of the accent. I've seen that happen.
yeah. That's also sometimes, yeah, I mean, you're just being real. Like that can be a problem. And so yeah, you need to be working around the world that we live in. It's not a perfect world.
Right.
So just doing a pulse check here, because I know that there was some data. We've gone through a lot already, and so what we talked about is you need to be focused on what you can control, because there's so much that you can't control, right? And so what you can control is the leaky bucket analogy, is focusing on patching those leaks first. And to patch those leaks, you can answer every single call with AI in less than 10 seconds. You can book straight into the CRM with an AI agent. You can instantly follow up with leads. And we also learned about the difference between an automation and an AI, which I think is a very important thing to understand. And finally, the drip campaigns, right? Two-way calls, SMS, recovering as many leads as possible of the ones that drop off your bucket. Now, the other thing that I think we also heavily marketed was humans versus AI, which is better. I feel like this is a hot topic as well. And so I have a slide to kind of talk about this. Curious about your insights on this too, Paul, or your opinions, if you agree with me. But I think that it really comes down to salesmanship. And so humans, in my opinion, are, at least for today, they are better than AI in two scenarios. Whenever you are fighting inertia, so for example, right, say that you are placing a cold call, which by the way, it's always going to be low conversion, but say that you're placing a cold call and somebody is, I don't know, watching football, or maybe they're at work. Now you're fighting their inertia of doing something, that they're focused on something else, and you have just a few seconds to distract them from what they're doing, delivering enough value that they're willing to pause that. Whenever that's the case, you gotta persuade, you gotta fight that inertia. AI is just not gonna cut it. Like most humans are not gonna cut it, but humans are gonna be better at that.
Very
And
special
then
humans can cut it, but that's a take. We recruit those kind of people, and you have to go through a couple hundred to find one. But you find one, they kill it. It's a special human trait to have that persuasion and persistence to make it actually happen.
yeah, sometimes there's just something about the tone of the voice, the sound, like it's very subtle, right? It's not like a
Right.
recipe, and it's also something that clicks between two people. So it requires a lot of like emotional intelligence as well, in those first 5 seconds. The other thing is when there is like a relationship, right? Like you're never gonna have like a relationship with AI the same way that you can with someone you know,
So,
right?
for example,
So
I'm a friend of Susie Smith. Susie told me to call
yes,
you. You know,
yeah.
you can't, if you get a lead from somebody where there's a relationship in that, like we get a lot of leads from coaches, right? So their trusted advisor is saying they should call us. Hey, Paul is a friend of mine. We should give Paul a call. Then it's relationship based, and AI cannot do that.
Yeah, exactly. So those I feel like are definitely use cases where like humans work a lot better. There are a lot of startups out there that have tried to do like the AI SDR, like for outbound calling. And like while it's sexy, it's just so tough. It's just so tough to achieve that. And that's why, it's very different to have an AI SDR which is a sales development representative, basically placing outbound calls, with what we talked about, which is an AI CSR, because the difference here is intent. You're not fighting
Right.
inertia, right? Somebody's calling you or
They
somebody's
actually need
submitting a form.
information, right? They're calling you because they want
Yes.
something.
Exactly. So you're actually working with their inertia in that case, which makes all the difference. So whenever you are working with that inertia, then speed becomes often the most important thing. And just like you said, when you try to use a shovel, you cannot beat a computer with speed. You'd be
Right.
foolish trying to do that, especially at scale, right? Like when all of a sudden it's 120 degrees outside and you get a lot of business, you can't instantly hire and train 4 new people, but the AI is already set and it can handle 4x the volume from a day to the next.
Right. It's very
So in
scalable.
those
Now,
cases, yeah,
and one of the things I think is important for 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, and I think I've been in the AI for a while, and is the difference between intelligence and wisdom, right? So AI is very intelligent. You can tell you how to build a car, but can't tell you where to drive it. It's just like there was a
yep,
joke, sort of makes sense to me. AI knows that a tomato is a fruit, but it doesn't know not to put it in a fruit salad, right? So if you need intelligence, AI is good, like quick phone calls, responses, something is intelligent. If you need wisdom, I think you need a person.
yeah, that's I like that perspective as well. And so when it comes to outbound, right, like the big difference that we like to draw is if you're outbounding in terms of sales, then that's honestly tough for the AI. But if you're outbounding for speed, if you're outbounding with intent and you're not fighting inertia, then outbound can work really well.
And
And
I would say
so,
outbound would work if your outbound is saying maybe you qualify for a loan, or you're going to get flooded, or it's information based and they didn't know that information before. You may qualify for a loan or something. So I think if you have
right.
something that's information based, outbound AI might work. But if it's persuasion based, it ain't going to happen.
Yep, exactly. Like a free tune-up, or like, hey, you have this maintenance that you can just book.
Right. Or
Exactly.
your maintenance is due today, or
Yep.
whatever. I mean, that's information on your car or your air conditioning. And then I think AI can relate the information. But if you're trying to persuade somebody, I don't think AI is the answer.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have exactly to that point, we have, this question of like, does it work? And like you just said, it works really well if you use it the right way, but you have to know how to use it. So this is a very resourceful company, right? They're like $100 million company as well, out of Chicago. They send about 50% of their inbound calls through AI, and they have a very high customer satisfaction with AI, just like you said earlier. This is a company that was actually able, in terms of those labor margins, I called it out at the beginning. They were at 90 CSRs with the plan to scale to over 120. But when they started using AI, they realized they didn't need to hire 30 people. In fact, the AI was good enough that it was able to take over the attrition that naturally occurred. Some people just got promoted to do cold sales outbounding, and then the number of CSRs just actually ended up dropping by 30 people instead of increasing by
Wow, it's
30 people.
huge.
Yeah. But anyway, they actually ran, this is a case study I love to talk about, because they ran an outbound experiment doing maintenances on their own. And keep in mind, for most companies, we would have more of a white glove service where we run the campaigns. But this is a large company with many people employed at doing this. They're really good at it, so they do it on their own. And they told us this retroactively. They tested this by messaging, by reaching out to 10,000 customers, 5,000 with their normal outbound team, and 5,000 with our AI. The results you can see on the screen in terms of the booking rate were very similar. Our AI was slightly higher, but that doesn't matter at all. If you ran this test again, maybe you would have seen 3.9 with the humans. That's not what I'm here to tell you, that we beat the humans. That's absolutely not the point. The point is that we had a comparable number
Right.
to the
You can clearly
humans.
say it was as effective as humans. That's you can
It
say.
was as effective as humans, but here's the kicker, Paul. The humans took 3 touch points, an email, a text, and a call. and took 5 days to carry out this work, versus the AI was done in 40 minutes with just one single touch point, and it
Wow,
was
that's
able to
amazing.
get a similar result. So once again, it's not about who wins, it's about having a solution that is comparable and does it in a
Right.
fraction of the time at a fraction of the cost.
Absolutely. And I'm sure if you figured what the cost was, it's like 10% of humans. It's like way less, right?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So in terms of what, the question here was, does AI outbound work, right? Like here is like a case study that it works. Here's also what it can do from like a logistics perspective. You can create audiences, right, entirely automatically. Now you can like set up some filters, and then you can create all of these different audiences and let the AI brain decide when it's a good time to outbound. The way that you do that is with intelligent capacity planning, where you imagine you have your entire week, maybe it's 2 weeks, you have the number of jobs that you want by job type and how many jobs are actually booked already. And then you can let the AI brain do all of the work with surgical precision of reaching out by taking into consideration historical data, weather events that may be
Well,
upcoming.
let's say you're an
Uh,
air conditioning HVAC company, and all of a sudden you get a heat wave. You want to slow
yeah,
down your outbound because your inbound is going to go off the charts, right?
correct. Exactly. But then say that it's a bit dry, the job board is a little low, then you can send messages, for example, to schedule those maintenances, just like we just talked about. But the thing is that the old way was, I'm gonna send a marketing message, maybe with a promo to 1,000 people, check on this tonight or tomorrow morning and see how it is. And if it didn't work, send another batch of 1,000. Maybe let's do
Right.
2,000. Right? It's very manual. And then back to my Angie slide from earlier. When people do respond, 9 out of 10 times, now you need a human to come in and actually have that
Right.
conversation. Versus now with AI, it's no longer like 1,000 messages batches at a time. It's surgical. It's going to be sending. Maybe at the beginning, if you have a big gap, it will send 1,000, but then after that, it's going to scale it down all the way to like 10 messages, because it's
Right.
taking into consideration not just if the day is full, but it has machine learning and algorithms to say, hey, I'm going to predict that if I stop now, it will get full by Thursday. So
Right.
you're letting the AI brain operate on its own,
And you can give it
send
the
the
weather
messages.
conditions, you can give it all
Yeah,
the kind of information so it makes intelligent decisions based on information.
yeah, exactly. And so that's also something that I think is just so fascinating, and many people don't know. So yeah, you can let AI do all the work, do the outbound, do the planning, do the connecting, the booking, troubleshooting, following up, drip campaigns, two-way, text, calls,
Right.
and then eventually get yourself booked.
Great.
One other thing here, just about what about outbound sales, right? For that, we recommend using human beings. And so Avoca, by the way, also has human beings. We have about 80 people that we hired, manage, and train, and that assist the AI both for inbound and outbound. But we also partner with fantastic call centers to do that as well. So both are options. Or you can, and then of course we always recommend using your own best salespeople. But for outbound, yeah, we recommend doing that. Um, the way that a human in the loops work is basically that say that a call comes in, or a call is connected, but then the person doesn't want to speak with the AI for whatever reason, it's not working. Then we seamlessly transfer that conversation to a human being. All of the context for that call is like basically visible to the customer, to the
Right.
CSR on the other
So
end.
this is sort of the best
And
of both worlds, right?
100%, because while the end customer gets to speak with a human, which is what they want to do, that human is not touching a laptop at all, because the AI is still connected and it's still doing all the work. It's prompting answers, it's taking notes, surfacing technician availability, booking into the CRM. All of that is handled by the AI still, but the person speaking to a human.
Right.
you talked earlier about this, about how people are starting to really embrace AI in regular situations. Some people even prefer it. But we've been tracking this for a year and a half, and we've been seeing how like it's like now it used to be that a lot of people didn't like AI. Now it's starting to be very unlikely that people just hang up without giving AI a chance. But what we do know is that for this is for regular situations. What we do know is that for emergency situations, AI is still not there. It's not as good. And so having a human in the loop that they can say, can I speak to a human and it can transfer and at any time makes a difference in those situations. We also know that those emergency situations have are correlated with a higher ticket item. And so that's why we recommend having a solution in place. Avoca enables you to have it 24/7. But if you don't have Avoca and you just have like someone who can get reached after hours, I think that that's still an improvement over not having anything there.
Absolutely. And so one of the big questions, and I don't know if you're going to cover this, Federico, is, okay, this sounds great. What's it going to cost? I mean, we know it's cheaper than a person, clearly. But is it 10%? Is it 90%? Do you have some numbers on that?
Yeah, the numbers on what it's going to cost vary very greatly based on whether it's a single business or has multiple locations, whether they want humans or not, whether they want just an AI responder or they also want the outbound speed to lead texting. So it's going to, like what I always recommend in this case is you want to speak to a salesperson because look, you're AI gets considered software, but AI is not software. It's a third element. It's not humans. It's not software. It's its own thing, and it needs to be very customized to the actual business to work properly.
So I would
And
say
so
for people listening to this, they sort of don't know what they don't know, if you know what I mean.
yeah.
And so in order to know if you're listening to this webinar, is it cost effective for me? I don't think you can make the decision without more information. You can't say it's 10% of the cost, it's 50%. There's no way really to know without calling somebody like Federico and saying, okay, this is my situation. This is what I'm doing. What's this is going to cost versus a real human. And then you can get real numbers, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what I would recommend is to just get in touch. It doesn't cost anything to get that information and it's not something you can just plug in. Like this is not a project management software that is just the
No.
same for everybody. So you really need to speak with somebody who will understand your exact situation and can honestly tell you whether even it's a good fit, and if it is you can talk to them about what it would cost and what it would entail
Right.
in your specific situation. We have customers, for example, take a week to onboard. We have customers who take our engineers going on site for a month or even longer to build very complex custom integrations and custom solutions.
And
So
I would
it's
say one thing
entirely
that's
tough.
important for the people listening to this podcast is whether you're 2 guys or 25 guys, don't eliminate yourself. Oh, that's for big companies, not like companies like myself, because the level of company that it takes to integrate this kind of stuff has gone from like enterprise down to 2 guys in a truck. So I would not eliminate yourself because of size. I would call them and find out. Does that make sense, Federico?
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. And I had a few fun slides about how the org charts are going to incorporate AI agents. We have customers who are literally posting on LinkedIn to hire people to manage AI agents, which is pretty awesome to see.
Right.
About how like some people are skeptical, and like the key takeaway is basically don't being a laggard. Don't be the skeptical laggard and get left behind. But that's really everything that I wanted to cover today. We talked about focusing on what you can control, patching all the leaks, humans versus AI, and the benefits of a hybrid call center. If you want to learn more, like we were just talking about, we can even drop this link in the chat. But if you book through that link, we'll know that you came through Paul, and we'll waive any setup. There's like usually setup fees. We'll waive all of that as well. So we can drop this link in the chat, and I know that Paul will also follow up with an email with that link as well. So, but yeah, that's kind of everything that I wanted to cover today. Hopefully, it was a good learning experience for everybody.
Right. And we'll also have this available on your website, our website. So if you want a copy of this webinar, we'll send it to you, no problem. So, Frederick, I appreciate you being here. This is great information. And it's one of the values of webinars is so people can understand technology way faster than any other way. Because, sort of like if you're in a residential contract, you're going to have to adapt technology. You don't have it's not a choice anymore. And the latest technology is AI, so you certainly can't ignore it.
Amen. Amen to that.
Okay. Thank you for being here. And we'll be in touch with everybody who was here. I appreciate you being here. And everybody have a great, great day. Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Talk to you later. Bye.